What's up, everybody? So today we're going to be looking at the troubles of the Labour Party. We're going to look through a few articles here and see what's going on, and we're going to consider how much do we think that these troubles are going to impact Labour during this conference season. So if you've got any comments on this, comment below and we'll have a look at this article from The Sun. Jeremy Corbyn announces plans for a second Brexit referendum in June next year. Well, exclusive, it says. The Labour leader wants the public to make the final decision about the UK's relationship with the EU. Jeremy Corbyn also revealed that a second Brexit vote will be held next June if Labour win power. But he refused to state which way he would vote himself, saying only that he will referee the warring factions and let the public make the final decision. The general election is likely to be called at the end of November or in early December. Now, that would involve a deal with the EU to keep the UK in a customs union with a single market access, removing the threat of a hard Irish border. That is expected to be completed by February, and the deal would be put to the people in June, with the option to remain instead. Now, I have a real issue with this. With revoke coming from the Lib Dems recently, well, the second referendum could be seen as middle ground at this point. However, we have to remember that that is not the case. That is still a betrayal of the referendum. Okay. Trying not to say too much on that, we'll go on. It continues. A YouGov survey for People's Vote out today shows Boris Johnson's Tory lead halved to 7 points ahead of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, which is only 1 point behind the Lib Dems. The survey of 2,000 voters puts Conservatives on 30%, Labour on 23%, Lib Dems on 22% and the Brexit Party at 14%. This would have the Prime Minister's 19 seats short of an overall majority, with both Labour and Conservatives losing seats to the Lib Dems and the SNP. So that's the end of that article. And that survey, well, this survey seems to be opposed to the other surveys I'm seeing at the moment. So from Reuters on Saturday, the Conservatives have a 15-point lead. So we're talking about 37% to 22%, and this is from an opinion poll. This is also being reported in many other outlets, so I'm not exactly sure where The Sun have got this People's Vote YouGov survey from. However, I did find something in another article where it talks about in separate polling this weekend by YouGov for the People's Vote campaign, it showed 46% of voters thought that any effort by a party leader to stay neutral in a Brexit referendum would be unreasonable, and only 26% thought it was acceptable. Now, I had a look at YouGov, and I couldn't find it on the website, to be completely honest. It might be a premium feature, and I'm certainly not paying for that. But this People's Vote campaign, I don't even know what that is, to be honest. Are they questioning people who wanted a second referendum? I really don't know. So those figures I'm very suspect of from The Sun. Okay, moving on to the Mail. Tom Watson plot to become PM and form a unity government with rebel Tory and Liberal Democrat MPs sparks bid to oust him as deputy leader. Says allies of Jeremy Corbyn moved to try and oust Labour deputy leader Tom Watson because they believed he was plotting with rebel Tory and Liberal Democrat MPs to form a government of national unity, the Mail on Sunday has learned. The creation of such an administration has been suggested in a bid to block no deal, but the pro-EU Liberal Democrats, 21 rebel Tories and even some Labour MPs have said they would not accept Corbyn as leader. Okay? So Mr Corbyn said was forced yesterday to call off an attempt by his supporters to pass a motion in Brighton at their conference, which would have abolished Mr Watson's post after his MPs warned it would lead to civil war. Friday's surprise motion, condemned as a drive-by shooting by Mr Watson, was tabled by John Landsman, the founder of Labour's Corbyn-backed grassroots group Momentum. But last night, furious Labour MPs privately claimed the real culprit was Mr Corbyn's Chief of Staff, Kyrie Murphy. Right, however it goes on, the bid to abolish the deputy leader post is just the latest in a series of attempts by Corbyn loyalists to punish pro-Remain Mr Watson's disloyalty. He angered them by setting up his own centre-left group within the party and openly defied Mr Corbyn by calling for a second referendum ahead of its general election. Mr Watson said, "These kind of things happen in Venezuela. They shouldn't be happening in the UK." So that's obviously a dig at Corbyn's support for the socialist country, Venezuela. Moving on to The Guardian. So, key Labour aide quits over lack of competence and decency in Corbyn's team. So advisor Andrew Fisher accuses leadership of a class war in his resignation as new row blows up over party's position on Brexit. He reportedly quit, saying that Labour leader cannot win the next general election. Fisher's resignation adds to bitter infighting that has dogged the party. It boiled over again this weekend when pro-Remain Labour MPs and activists accused Corbyn of trying to shut down democratic debate on Brexit. The row, which broke out after the leadership tabled plans to delay a decision on whether it should back, remain or leave until after the general election, came as a new opinion poll for The Observer showed the Tory party had extended its lead to Labour to 15 points. Also worrying for Labour before a probable general election in which Brexit would be certain to dominate, the survey found that almost 7 out of 10 voters now believe Corbyn's policy on Brexit, which is to back a second referendum while not recommending either leave or remain, they say it's unclear. And in contrast, well over half of voters think the Conservatives, Lib Dems and the Brexit Party at least have a clear Brexit policy. Opinium also found for the first time that Remain voters were now just as likely to vote for the Lib Dems as for Labour. So on Saturday, Corbyn tabled a draft statement to the party's National Executive Committee which said the crucial decision on how Labour would campaign in a referendum would be put off until a one-day special conference following the election of a Labour government. The move was seen as an attempt to override pro-Remain motion and prevent it being debated and voted on. While Corbyn now accepts that Labour should pursue a referendum in an election campaign, he also fears driving away Labour supporters who backed leaving the EU and has indicated that he would want to stay neutral when the second vote happened, a position regarded as unsustainable by many in his party. And also by many in the general public, I may add to that. Now this, again, occurs to me that he's right in that respect. He really doesn't want to drive away the voters that actually voted for Brexit. He doesn't want to do that. So he's in a bit of a tough position. So looking at all of these points, he's getting some terrible polling. And the polling is also suggesting neutrality is unreasonable. He's had a failed plot in his hand to remove Watson. He's had an aide quitting. And he's also been accused of shutting down debate. So the question is, can Labour survive these troubles in its current form? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Now, before I go, I just wanted to give you a little bit of comedy gold from The Sun. Well, I found it funny anyway. In an opinion piece called Nelson's Column, it says Jeremy Corbyn isn't sitting on the fence. He's sitting pretty. And you may laugh at that. You might want to read this article. It is really badly written, to be fair, but it does say, don't criticise Jeremy Corbyn's Brexit position. It makes sense to Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Well, does it indeed? He says Jeremy Corbyn can't win except when it comes to the not-so-minor matter of the forthcoming general election, in which he looks more and more likely to emerge as PM. Does it? I don't know where he's getting this from. Sorry about that, 1 second. As a Remainer who wishes to honour the 2016 referendum result, it's pretty much identical to mine, he says. Corbyn's opinion, obviously. If we can't stay in the EU, I want us in a customs union with as much single market access as possible. That solves the Irish border stalemate, then the Brexit backstop, and causes the mildest of economic earthquakes. Jeremy Corbyn would hold a general election with a promise of negotiating his New Deal, followed by a referendum in which there was an option to remain. Corbyn would stay above the fray and let the people decide. Honestly, this is just too funny. It's a formula which might just get him across the tightrope spanning Labour's diehard Brexiteers and hopeful Remainers without falling off. Well, how ridiculous is that? It's more likely to just drive that wedge right down the middle and continue. What everybody thinks of Labour anyway is that they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what their policy is, do they? Anyway, there you go. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe if you appreciate what we do.